Okay, so for all of today's questions, we're going to be expanding brackets. So the questions will look like this on the board. Your mission is to make the brackets go away. So everything that you're doing today, that question will have brackets in it. By the time you get to your answer, the brackets are gone. Everything we do today is multiplying. So you need to remember, whenever we're expanding brackets, we're going to be timesing or multiplying. So all the questions today involve multiplication. I'm going to talk you through this first one, then give you a few more to try on your own. The question looks like that, and the instructions say expand the following. That means do some multiplying to make the brackets go away. Think of it like this. That number 3 on the outside needs to connect or touch or times with everything inside the brackets. I think of it like this, as this is a guy that's sitting outside of a party, and inside here, here's the party. He needs to go and talk to everyone at the party. And he doesn't stop until he's spoken to each person at the party. So the first thing you do is the 3 times the x. Now when you times a number and a letter together, all you need to do is write them next to each other. So that little green arrow pointing to the 3, or saying 3 times x, all you need to do is write it as this. 3x. That's it, that part's done. Now the 3 is spoken to the x, but now it needs to go over here and speak with the 5. So they have to times together as well. So another arrow can go from here all the way over to the positive 5. That is important, we'll see why a little bit later. So this time now it just says 3 times 5, or 3 times positive 5. 3 times positive 5 is positive 15. And that's your answer. You've expanded. That's all you need to do. You keep going until the number on the outside is times by each thing on the inside. I'll put a few more up that look like that, and then you can have a go at answering them. Okay, here are 4 more questions that look pretty similar to the ones that we've just seen. Do the exact same thing. This 5 needs to times by the x, and then the 5 needs to times by the 2. So those little coloured arrows do help you keep track of where you're up to. Your answer for most of them will look pretty similar to the black over here. So have a go at each one, pause it now to write them down, and I'll put the answers up for you to correct. Okay, let's go through them, and I'll point out a few places where you may have gotten stuck. The first one, very similar to the example, 5 times x is 5x, 5 times 2 is 10. When it's a number and a letter, you write them next to each other. If it's 2 numbers, 5 and 2, you just times them together like normal. 8 times x, 8x. 8 times negative 3, negative 24. That's how you decide whether to put a plus or a minus in the middle. 8 times negative 3 equals negative 24. So that just says minus 24 in your answer. Up here, if this one got a bit trickier, 4 times 2. So if there's numbers, you times the numbers together and then just write the letter next to it. So this says 4 times 2x. Just times the numbers together and write the letter next to it. You'll get more practice like this in a minute. 4 times 3 is the other part, or positive 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Be really careful with this last one. I did try and trick you because I put a negative 6 on the outside. Negative 6 times x, negative 6x. Now be careful here, because this is negative 6 times positive 5. Put it in the calculator if you're not sure how to do it. But negative 6 times positive 5 equals negative 30. So that's why it says minus 30 in your answer down there. Okay, I'll wipe this off and put a few more up. All right, 2 more that were like the 2 tricky ones that we just practiced. Here, careful, there's a negative on the outside. And this one, you've got a number and a letter together here. Look at the 2 that you just did from the last examples. Try and solve these 2. And here are your answers. Negative 2 times x, negative 2x. When it's a number and a letter, you just write them next to each other. But be careful here. This is negative 2 times negative 4. Negative 2 times negative 4. When you multiply two negative numbers together, it turns into a positive. So that becomes plus 8 down here. And for the bottom, 6 times 3x. Times the numbers together, 6 times 3, and just put the letter next to it. And then 6 times 7 is 42. All right, a few different ones now. All right, these ones look a little bit different because now there is a letter on the outside. So I'll do the first one with you, and then you can have a go at the other ones on your own. But have a look at all these ones. There's either a letter by itself. I've changed the letter to an A. It makes no difference what letter it is. The rules are always the same. Sometimes there'll be a number and a letter on the outside. So here's how we solve the first one. Do all the same things as before. That X on the outside needs to times with everything inside the brackets. So first we do X times X. Here's the important bit. You need to know what this is. Students often get mixed up. They're not sure if X times X is 2X or X squared. If you know which one it is, you can write it down now. But please make a note of this right now. X times X is always X squared, written just like that. So that's your first green arrow done, your little green rainbow's completed. The next one, X times 5, or X times positive 5. Now you know what to do because you've already been doing it when it's a number times by a letter. You just write them next to each other. So it's a positive 5, and then you put the X next to it, and that's your answer. Pause it now. I'd like you to do the same thing with all of the other ones. A couple of tips. Just times the X's together and the 5 sits next to it, so nothing really changes. You've just got an extra 5 here. Careful if there's a negative on the outside as well. Try and use all the tips from before. Answer these ones. Go. Okay, let's go through each of the answers. A times A squared. A times negative 7, oops, I made a mistake, negative 7A. So it looks really similar to the one that you just did, but I used A's instead of X's. Next one, X times Y. I didn't explain this to you, but I wanted you to have a go. When you have to times two letters together, all you do is write them next to each other. That's all you have to do. So if the letters are different, X times Y, just write them next to each other like that. And then over here, X times 3X. Well, there's no other numbers, so just write the 3 as it is. And then we already know that X times X equals X squared. Next one. This is similar to what you just did. 5X times X. Well, there's no other numbers yet, so just leave the 5 as it is. X times X, X squared. 5X times 3, 15X. This one here is really similar as well now. 2X squared, just put the 2 down the bottom again. X times X, X squared. And then 2 times 9, or negative 9 is negative 18. Put the X next to it. Careful, there's a negative down here. Negative 3, and then X times X is X squared. Negative 3 times positive 2. That's why this turns into a negative down here. Negative 3 times positive 2, I made another mistake, is 6, and then put the X on the end. All right? I'll wipe these off. There's one more thing that we need to learn today, and that is expanding two brackets. I'll show you that now as well. All right, I'll do one example with you, and then you'll have a go at doing a few on your own. Now the questions will look like this. The instructions are the same. It'll say expand. Make the brackets go away. We're still timesing the whole time as well. But this time, think of it like two separate parties. This person in this party wants to speak to everyone in this bracket. So the X needs to talk to these two people, times with them, and then the 2 has to times with both of the things in the other bracket. All right? So let's start from the top. Go with me. Solve before me. Just like in the classroom. Don't wait for me to do it. I want you to do it as I instruct you to. So have that written down. Let's start with this X. The first thing this X is going to do is times with each thing in the other bracket. So the first thing I want you to do is X times X. You know what that is. Write it down here. X times X is X squared. Do it before me. Now this x isn't finished yet because it hasn't spoken to the 6. It hasn't connected over here with the 6 yet. So now it is x times positive 6. Common question is, how do I know whether to write a plus or a minus down here now? It's x times positive 6. That equals positive 6x. That's how I know whether to write a plus or a minus in there. That x is all finished now. It's connected to both things in the other bracket, so its work is done. But look at this 2. There's no arrows coming from this 2 yet. It's done nothing. This 2 now needs to connect to each thing in the other bracket. So do exactly the same thing. That's a positive 2. So start with positive 2 times x. Write them next to each other. Okay? When your number and a letter are multiplying, you just write them next to each other. Then you need to do positive 2 times positive 6. Or just 2 times 6 if that makes more sense to you. And then write your answer there. Positive 12. So you've expanded. There's one tiny little step that you still need to do. Everything's been expanded, but I want you to have one colour handy. You need to do some coloured underlining here. If you look at these 4 things, 2 of them can be grouped together because they have the same letter next to them. So there's x's everywhere. This one's a bit different because it's got a squared next to it. So this is actually different from all the others. But these 2 are the same. And because they're the same, we want to underline them. Now watch really carefully how I underline it. I'm not just underlining the 6x, I'm underlining that plus as well, because that plus belongs to the 6. Do the exact same underlining the other one that belongs with it, this one here. Underline the plus with it, and you've now grouped together the 2 things that are similar. Last step, all you need to do is rewrite this line here, but now this just says positive 6 plus 2. You can do that on the calculator if ever you get mixed up. You just don't write the x's next to it when you put it in the calculator. And then you can put your final answer down the bottom. So this x squared, that stays the same. X squared. And then this says positive 6 plus 2, or 6 plus 2 equals positive 8x. When you're collecting these red underline, the like terms, you're just adding the numbers together and then you write the letter next to it. And then don't forget this plus 12 on the end. And that's your final answer. I'm going to put a few more up for you to practice. Okay, write down these 2 and follow the exact same steps that we just did, and you will end up, hopefully, at the correct answer. I'll put the answers up in a sec. Okay, let's have a look at our answers, see where they came from. X times x, x squared. X times positive 4, positive 4x. That bit's done. Positive 5 times x, positive 5x. Positive 5 times positive 4, positive 20. Now I can do my coloured underlining. Plus 4x and plus 5x. They're the same because they've both got an x next to them. That just means 4 plus 5, or positive 4 plus positive 5. That's where my 9 comes from. On to the other side. X times x, x squared. X times negative 3. Careful, there's a negative here, so this time negative 3x. Because it was x times negative 3. That's where that minus comes from. Minus and negative, they mean the same thing. Positive 7 plus x. Remember that plus belongs to the 7. So plus 7 times x plus 7x. Plus 7, positive 7, they mean the same thing. Plus 7, negative 3. Times them together. Positive 7 times negative 3, negative 21. Chuck that in your calculator if you get mixed up with your positives and negatives. Colour underlining, a little bit tricky here because there's a minus or a negative involved. This says negative 3 plus 7. If you get mixed up, type that in your calculator. Type in negative 3 plus 7 and it will give you an answer of 4. Positive 4. So that's why that comes up down there. Okay, I'll let you practice a couple more. Okay, 2 more. This one, be careful, there's a negative in each bracket, so just be careful when you're multiplying and doing your coloured underlining. This one, same thing, It says 2x at the start, but that shouldn't change anything because you've had a bit of practice already when you do 2x times x from before. Press pause and solve, please. All right, let's go through our answers. X times x, x squared. X times -7, -7x. Done. -6 times x, -6x. Careful, negative times a negative equals positive, 42. Coloured underlining. Again, if you get mixed up with which way to count, whether to make your numbers higher or lower, use your calculator. This says -7 minus 6. If you don't know how to use the minus and the negative buttons, because they're different buttons on your calculator, make sure you ask for help. But -7 minus 6 equals -13. Other side. 2x times x, 2x squared. 2x times 4, or a positive 4, positive 8x. -3 times x, -3x. -3 times positive 4 is -12. Coloured underlining, okay, those two are the same because they're both just an x. Make sure you're underlining the plus and the minus with it as well. That is very important. This says positive 8, or just regular old 8, take away 3. 8 take away 3 is positive 5, so here's my answer. Okay, that's it. You can now work through the questions in the book.